Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing great today. In today's video, we'll dive into an incredible chapter of military history, Chapter 15, Part 2. We'll discuss three key topics that highlight the heroic defense of Skardu during the 1948 conflict. Let's jump right in. Here's what we're covering in today's video. Thapa's leadership. Defending Skardu amidst challenges. The Siege of Skardu. Defiance against overwhelming odds. Ambush. Resistance and desperation. The Siege of Skardu intensifies. We'll also share some easy-to-understand charts to explain the events and lessons from operational art that are relevant even today. If you're interested in military history, this is the video for you. Let's jump to first part. Dosto, in this part, we'll explore the compelling story of Thapa's journey to Skardu during the pivotal events of 1947-48. We'll discuss the historical significance of Skardu, the military context of the region, Thapa's strategic leadership under immense challenges, and how he fortified the defenses despite local hostility and communication vulnerabilities. Stay tuned to uncover the inspiring resilience and preparation that define this critical chapter in history. Let's dive in to understand it better. Friends, let's start with some quick background on Skardu. It's fascinating. Skardu, as you might know, was part of the Ladakh district. But here's the catch. It was the winter headquarters for the district officer. Why? Well, because Leh's winters were just too extreme to handle. So, they shifted operations to Skardu during the harsh season. Smart move, right? Now, Skardu wasn't just a random spot. It was a key region made up of territories belonging to 5 Rajas: Rondhu, Khaplu, Shigar, Kharmang, and, of course, Skardu itself. This made it a strategically significant place with a lot of history tied to it. But here's where things got tricky. The population of Skardu was predominantly Muslim, and unfortunately, due to ignorance and some deep-rooted prejudices, they were often sympathetic to the raiders. This created an added layer of challenge for the defenders. So, you see, defending Skardu wasn't just about military strategy. It also meant navigating a complex social and political landscape. Interesting, right? Skardu's background sets the stage for the incredible story of its defense, which we'll discuss further in the video. Stick around. Alright, friends, now let's dive into the military context of the region, because understanding the setup of the defense forces is key to appreciating the challenges they faced. The main force in the area was the 6th Jammu and Kashmir Infantry, which was a mixed unit comprised of Sikhs and Muslims. But here's the thing, these troops were spread out across multiple locations, making coordination extremely challenging. Let's break it down for you. Leh. One company of 6 soldiers was stationed here under the command of Major Thapa himself. Kargil. A mobile column was positioned here, consisting of 2 Sikh platoons and 1 wireless communication WT set under Captain Ganga Sen. Skardu. 2 Muslim platoons were deployed here under Captain Naik Alam, which, as we'll see later, posed some unique challenges. Banji. The remainder of the battalion was stationed here, but was unfortunately lost when the raiders took control of the area. Now here's the kicker. After the fall of Gilgit and the capture of Lieutenant Colonel Abdul Majid Khan, Major Thapa had to step up and take command of this entire defense network. Think about the responsibility on his shoulders. With limited resources and forces scattered across a rugged, hostile terrain, his job was nothing short of monumental. Friends, this setup highlights the immense strategic challenges that lay ahead. But as you'll see, Major Thapa's leadership made all the difference. Let's move on to see how he tackled these challenges. Alright, let's break this down step by step and make it easier to understand using a flowchart. This is about Thapa's move to Skardu, a bold and crucial operation. Let's see how it all unfolded. 21st November 1947, Thapa received orders to reinforce Skardu with the troops available at his disposal. 23rd November 1947, He departed from Leh with his initial force and made a critical stop at Kargil to collect reinforcements. 3rd December 1947, Thapa reached Skardu after a challenging journey. His final force included 2 officers, 2 JCOs, junior commissioned officers, 75 men, including 3 Muslims for wireless communication, WT operations. As you can see, friends, Thapa's journey was both strategic and precise, ensuring he had the right mix of troops and equipment to bolster Skardu's defenses. Despite the challenges, he reached Skardu in under 2 weeks, a remarkable feat in such harsh conditions. Alright, let's talk about the initial challenges at Skardu. And trust me, things were anything but easy for Major Thapa and his garrison. First, the local population was highly suspicious and unwelcoming. They didn't trust the garrison, which made cooperation almost impossible. On top of that, the Raja of Rondhu became openly hostile. He actively encouraged attacks on Skardu and even threatened the messengers sent by Thapa to communicate with other posts. Imagine fighting not just external raiders, but also facing such hostility from within the region. It's tough. To make matters worse, there was an internal threat as well. A defector, Captain Hassan Khan, sent letters to incite the Muslim troops at Skardu to rebel against the garrison. However, here's where Captain Naik Alam played a crucial role. He intercepted these letters and forwarded them to Srinagar, ensuring the rebellion was thwarted before it could gain momentum. But Thapa didn't just sit back and hope for the best. He took charge of the situation, conducting reconnaissance to understand the region better and strengthen the fort's defenses to prepare for any eventual attacks. This was a true test of his leadership and foresight. These initial challenges set the tone for the long and difficult siege that was about to unfold. But as we'll see, Thapa's proactive approach laid the groundwork for the garrison's resilience. Let's move on to see what happened next. Now, let's discuss one of the major weaknesses in Skardu's defense, its vulnerabilities. One of the biggest challenges was the unreliable communication between Skardu and the nearby Zari outpost, located on the banks of the Indus River. Back then, communication relied entirely on runners. Yes, people physically running messages through dangerous terrain. As you can imagine, this method was not only slow but also risky. Any delay or interception could leave the garrison blind to important updates. In fact, the last message received from Zari on 9th February mentioned no danger in the area. But shortly after, the outpost was attacked and destroyed by raiders, catching the defenders completely off guard. This shows how critical reliable communication is during a conflict. For Skardu, this vulnerability created a significant blind spot, which the raiders exploited. So, with these vulnerabilities in place, the stage was set for the dramatic events that were about to unfold. Let's move on to the next segment. Alright, friends, now let's talk about the much-needed reinforcements to Skardu. And to make it easier to understand, we'll break it down step by step using a flowchart. Let's take a look. Initial troop strength at Skardu. When the siege began, there were only 40 Sikh troops and 31 Muslim troops defending Skardu. Reinforcements ordered 15th January 1948. 2 companies of troops were dispatched from Srinagar under orders to reinforce Skardu. They had to endure harsh winter conditions, crossing the treacherous Jojila Pass. Jojila crossing, 30th January. The reinforcements successfully crossed Jojila on 30th January despite the freezing conditions and challenging terrain. Arrival at Skardu, 10th February. The reinforcements reached Skardu in groups by 10th February 1948. This brought the total troop strength under Thapa's command to 130 non-Muslim troops, 31 Muslim troops. As you can see, friends, these reinforcements were crucial in bolstering Skardu's defenses. Crossing Jojila in the middle of winter was no small feat. It shows the determination of the soldiers to support their comrades. With these reinforcements, Major Thapa had the manpower to strengthen his defensive efforts against the raiders. Alright, friends, let's talk about how things were shaping up in Skardu after the arrival of reinforcements. Two important points here: morale and preparation. First, the arrival of reinforcements did wonders for the morale of both the garrison and the local population. Imagine being stuck in a siege, thinking you're alone, and then seeing fresh troops arrive. It gave everyone hope and energy to continue the fight. Second, Major Thapa didn't waste a moment. With the additional manpower, Skardu's defenses were fortified and provisions were stockpiled to ensure they could hold out for an extended period. Thapa's strategy was to prepare for the worst while staying ready for any eventuality. Now, here's the interesting part. Despite these preparations and reinforcements, by February 1948, there were no signs of the enemy near Skardu. This calm before the storm gave the defenders some breathing room, but also an airy sense of uncertainty about when and where the raiders would strike next. So, friends, the stage was set: high morale, fortified defenses, and a garrison ready to hold the fort. Alright, now let's take a step back and look at the Skardu defense through the lens of operational art, a concept that ties tactics and strategy together. To do this, we'll draw parallels with lessons from key historical examples. Chapter: Napoleon and the Dawn of Operational Warfare. First, let's look at Thapa's movement to Skardu. His ability to swiftly reinforce and consolidate forces mirrors Napoleon's strategy of concentrating troops at critical points to reinforce vulnerable positions while maintaining a unified command structure. Napoleon was known for his speed, precision, and focus on decisive action, qualities that Thapa displayed when he moved from Leh, gathered reinforcements at Kargil, and reached Skardu in time to bolster its defenses. The lesson here is clear. When defending against a superior force, swift and strategic movement of reinforcements can be the difference between survival and defeat. This was operational art at its finest. Next, let's talk about the use of geography in the defense of Skardu. The defenders leveraged natural barriers like the Himalayas and Karakoram ranges and choke points like Joji La Pass for strategic defense. This reflects the core principles of Prussian-German operational art, where terrain played a critical role in shaping battle strategies. The Prussians and Germans were masters at using natural features to their advantage, and the defenders of Skardu did the same by holding key positions while forcing the raiders to fight in harsh conditions. Terrain becomes a silent ally in any military operation when used wisely. Lastly, let's examine how Thapa handled the local population. Despite the hostility and mistrust among locals, Thapa worked to secure loyalty and manage civilian dynamics. This approach aligns with the Chinese way of war, which emphasizes managing local populations to ensure operational stability and support. The Chinese operational philosophy often focused on ensuring the civilian environment was favorable to their military goals. Similarly, by intercepting rebellion attempts and fortifying local morale after reinforcements arrived, Thapa ensured that the local hostility didn't spiral into a full-blown threat to the garrison. Friends, we now enter the most dramatic and intense phase of this story, the Siege of Skardu. This was a period of relentless attacks, incredible resilience, and a test of human endurance. For months, Major Thapa and his garrison stood their ground against overwhelming odds, facing well-armed raiders, hostile terrain, and dwindling resources. This siege wasn't just a military standoff. It was a battle of strategy, courage, and survival. As we move further into this chapter, we'll uncover the key events, tactics, and turning points that defined this historic defense. Let's step inside and see how it all unfolded. Alright, friends, now let's break down the raiders' preparations and their initial attack on Skardu. To make it easy to follow, we'll use a flowchart to understand their composition, leadership, and resources. Let's take a closer look. Composition of raiders. Total strength, 600 men, including tribal raiders, the bulk of the force, Chitralis, from the Chitral region, 80 deserters from the Jammu and Kashmir army, adding insider knowledge to their tactics. Weapons and equipment. Armed with modern rifles for ranged attacks, 2-inch and 3-inch mortars for heavy bombardment. Leadership. The raiders were led by a team of experienced commanders. Major Ehsan Ali, Captain Muhammad Khan, Lieutenant Babar Khan. So, friends, as you can see, this was no disorganized group. The raiders were well prepared, heavily armed, and commanded by experienced leaders. With 600 men and modern equipment, they were a formidable force ready to test the defenses of Skardu. Now, friends, let's talk about the tragic attack on the Zari outpost, a pivotal moment in the lead-up to the Siege of Skardu. This attack revealed both the strength of the raiders and the vulnerabilities of the defending forces. Let's break it down step by step. The attack, night of 9-10 February. Under the cover of darkness, the raiders launched a coordinated attack on the Zari outpost, overwhelming the state force platoon stationed there. Despite their resistance, the defenders were outnumbered and outgunned. Aftermath. Survivors of the attack were captured, and tragically, SIP troops, including Captain Krishna Sena, were murdered by the raiders. Defection of Captain Naik Alam's platoon. Adding to the shock, the Muslim platoon under Captain Naik Alam defected to the raiders, providing them with critical manpower and insight into the defenders' tactics. Friends, this attack on the Zari outpost was a significant blow. Not only did the raiders secure a psychological advantage by wiping out the outpost, but the defection of Captain Naik Alam's platoon further tipped the balance in their favor. This event set the stage for the larger siege that was about to unfold at Skardu. Let's move to the next segment. Alright, let's now break down the attack on Skardu on 11th February 1948. To make it simple and clear, we'll use a flowchart to analyze how this surprise assault unfolded and how the defenders responded. Let's take a closer look. Raiders' surprise attack. Date: 11th February 1948. The raiders launched a surprise attack on Skardu fort, supported by machine guns for sustained firepower, mortars 2-inch and 3-inch for heavy bombardment, loud war cries to disorient and intimidate the defenders. The garrison fought back fiercely, repelling the raiders after 6 hours of intense combat. Enemy losses: 10 dead, 1 wounded, captured. Raiders abandoned weapons, including an MMG and a 2-inch mortar. Garrison losses: 7 soldiers killed and 16 wounded during the fierce battle. Tragic events in the town. Wazir Amarnath and several non-Muslims were brutally murdered in the nearby town by the raiders. As you can see, friends, this was a bloody and intense confrontation. The raiders came prepared with superior firepower and shock tactics, but the defenders' resilience and preparedness ensured they held the fort against all odds. The cost, however, was high both for the garrison and for the civilians in the town. This attack marked the beginning of what would become a long and grueling siege. Let's move on to the next segment to see how the defenders continued to resist. Alright, friends, let's take a closer look at how reinforcements arrived at Skardu after the initial attack. To make it easy to follow, we'll use a timeline chart to show the sequence of events and the gradual build-up of strength at the fort. Let's dive in. 13th February 1948, first reinforcement column arrives. Captain Ajit Singh led the first group of 70 men to Skardu. 15th February 1948, second reinforcement column arrives. Another column of 70 men reached Skardu, further strengthening the garrison. Total garrison strength. With these reinforcements, the total garrison strength grew to 285 soldiers, including Thapa's original garrison, civilian refugees and prisoners. In addition to the garrison, Skardu housed 229 non-Muslim refugees, 19 Muslim refugees, 22 Muslim civil prisoners. So, as you can see, friends, the arrival of reinforcements significantly boosted the manpower and morale of Skardu. With 285 soldiers and a growing number of civilians, relying on the fort for safety, the stakes were higher than ever. These reinforcements came just in time to strengthen the garrison as the siege intensified. Alright, friends, let's talk about the escalation of the siege as the raiders solidified their positions around Skardu. To help you understand this, we'll use flowchart to trace their movements and attacks. Let's break it down step by step. 1415's February 1948, occupation of point 8853. Raiders took control of point 8853, a hill to the northwest of the fort. This strategic position allowed them to set up snipping posts and place machine guns, giving them a clear advantage. 19th February 1948, raider strength grows. By this date, the raider strength near Skardu swelled to 500 men, further increasing pressure on the garrison. Raiders occupy surrounding villages. The raiders began taking over nearby villages, including Nansok, Blue Crow Hill, Saunders, Gomba Skardu, and Kapashna. 21 to 24 February 1948, heavy mortar fire. The raiders launched an intense mortar bombardment on Skardu fort, using 2-inch and 3-inch mortars to weaken the defenses. Friends, as you can see, the raiders were methodical in tightening their grip around Skardu. By occupying high ground like point 8853 and surrounding villages, they created a chokehold, while their heavy mortar fire kept the defenders on constant alert. The pressure was mounting, and the situation inside the fort was growing more desperate by the day. Alright, friends, let's now dive into the key engagements during the Siege of Skardu, a series of intense clashes between the garrison and the raiders. To make this easier to follow, we'll use a flowchart to break down the timeline of these engagements and understand the ebb and flow of the battle. Let's get started. 24th February 1948, ambush on garrison patrol. A garrison patrol was ambushed by 2 platoons of raiders. Despite being outnumbered, Skardu troops successfully extricated themselves, suffering only 2 casualties. 4th March 1948, heavy shelling. Raiders launched an hour-long mortar bombardment on key defensive positions, including School Picquet, Raja Picquet, and Number 6 Picquet. The garrison responded with fort mortar fire, silencing the raiders, but 1 defender was seriously wounded. 6th March 1948, assault on a picket. 2 platoons of raiders launched a coordinated assault on a picket with mortar cover. The garrison repelled the attack, leaving 1 raider dead. 14th March 1948, garrison's counter-ambush. Skardu troops ambushed a hostile patrol, inflicting casualties. The raiders retreated, carrying their dead and wounded, with support from machine guns on PT 8853. As you can see, friends, these engagements highlight the intense back and forth between the garrison and the raiders. From ambushes to mortar shelling and coordinated attacks, every move tested the resilience of the defenders. Despite overwhelming odds, the garrison held firm, striking back whenever possible and minimizing their losses. Alright, friends, now let's step back and analyze these key engagements during the Siege of Skardu through the lens of operational art. By connecting these events to historical examples, we can uncover the timeless strategies at play. Let's break it down into 3 key points based on different operational art frameworks. Chapter name: Operational Art and Britain, 1909 to 2009. The way Skardu was defended under siege, with its fortress-based warfare, mirrors British colonial-era operational techniques. The garrison didn't just stay on the defensive, they launched aggressive patrols to disrupt raider plans, such as the 14th March ambush, where they inflicted casualties and forced the raiders to retreat. This approach highlights the importance of maintaining active defense rather than being completely reactive, something the British successfully employed during their colonial campaigns to protect remote forts. Moving next, dosto, the arrival of reinforcements and the integration of civilian refugees into the defensive plan reflect the American approach to operational continuity. Like the Americans, who emphasized logistical resilience, Skardu's defenders made strategic use of resources. Reinforcements arriving in February 1948 bolstered morale and manpower, while the inclusion of civilian refugees ensured local stability and support within the fort. This demonstrates how, even under pressure, maintaining a steady flow of resources and manpower can sustain an operation over time, something that has been a cornerstone of American operational art. Lastly, the rise and fall of Israeli operational art 1948 to 2008. Dosto, the garrison's ability to execute counter-ambush tactics aligns closely with Israeli operational principles. For example, the 14th March ambush was a textbook display of small unit action, where the defenders inflicted damage on the raiders and forced them to retreat despite being outnumbered. Similarly, their quick reaction to the 6th March assault ensured tactical superiority. This focus on rapid counterattacks and small unit flexibility mirrors Israeli strategies, which prioritize initiative and adaptability to outmaneuver a numerically superior force. Alright, friends, now let's move to the third part of this incredible story, the ambush of Brigadier Fakir Singh and how the Siege of Skardu intensified after this pivotal event. This was a turning point where the raiders not only inflicted heavy losses but also tightened their grip around Skardu, making the defenders' situation even more critical. Stay tuned as we dive into the details. Now, friends, let's talk about the Biscuit Column, a crucial reinforcement attempt led by Brigadier Fakir Singh. This column was specifically organized to break the Siege of Skardu and strengthen its defenses. Let's take a quick look at its composition and leadership. Composition of the column. One company of state force troops, equipped with two 2-inch mortars and 2 MMGs, medium machine guns. Additional reinforcements were drawn from Kargil to bolster the column. Leadership. Commanded by Brigadier Fakir Singh, a seasoned officer, accompanied by Major Scouts from the 6 Rajputana Rifles, adding further expertise to the operation. This column represented a significant effort to relieve Skardu, but as we'll see, it faced immense challenges. Friends, now let's talk about one of the most devastating moments in the Biscuit Column's mission, the ambush at Thurgo Gorge on 17th March 1948. This event marked a major setback in the effort to reinforce Skardu. The ambush location. The column was intercepted near goal, at a narrow and treacherous gorge in Thurgo. Raider strategy. Around 100 raiders executed the ambush with precision using mortars for long-range bombardment, the terrain to their advantage, trapping the column in the gorge. This ambush was a calculated move by the raiders to weaken the reinforcements and tighten their grip on Skardu. Friends, the ambush at Thurgo Gorge inflicted heavy casualties and resulted in significant losses for the Biscuit Column. Let's quickly go over the devastating impact of this event. Casualties and missing. 26 soldiers killed, 7 missing, and 18 wounded, including Brigadier Fakir Singh himself. Equipment losses. The raiders captured rifles, machine guns, ammunition, grenades, and mortar bombs, a massive blow to the column's operational capability. Outcome. The column was forced to retreat to Kargil, unable to continue its mission to relieve Skardu. Brigadier Fakir Singh returned to Srinagar on 2nd April 1948 to report the situation. This ambush not only halted the reinforcement attempt, but also emboldened the raiders, further tightening their hold on Skardu. Alright, friends, let's talk about Major Thapa's bold attempt to support the Biscuit Column. Despite the odds stacked against him, Thapa demonstrated incredible leadership and resilience during this critical moment. Thapa's mission. On 18th March, Major Thapa took to weak platons and set out to meet Brigadier Fakir Singh and provide support. Unexpected news. Along the way, Thapa learned of the ambush at Thurgo Gorge from local villagers. This information confirmed the dire situation faced by the Biscuit Column. Thapa's response. Despite knowing the danger, Thapa's troops encountered their own ambush but rallied courageously. They fought through the ambush for 8 kilometers and managed to avoid any casualties, a remarkable achievement given the circumstances. Thapa's determination to help his comrades shows his exceptional bravery and tactical skill. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, he kept his troops focused and brought them out unscathed. Friends, the Siege of Skardu entered an even more intense phase as the raiders ramped up their pressure on the garrison. With captured weapons and ammunition, they launched a series of relentless attacks aimed at breaking the defenders. Let's break this down. Raiders intensify the siege. Captured supplies. The raiders used captured rifles, machine guns, and mortars from the Biscuit Column ambush to strengthen their firepower. With these supplies, they mounted a series of aggressive attacks, determined to overwhelm the defenders. Major Assault, 20th March 1948. Diversionary Assault. At 0300 hours, the raiders launched an assault on No. 6 Picket with 2 platons, supported by heavy mortar and MMG fire from PT 8853. Main Attack. 2 hours later, the main attack came, targeting the fort from all sides with over 100 rounds of 3-inch mortars raining down. Outcome of the attack. Despite intense fighting, the garrison held firm, repelling the raiders. However, the defenders suffered 6 casualties, and key positions like the School Picquet and Raja Picket were cut off. Contact was only re-established with these pickets on 3rd April after days of isolation. Friends, the defenders' resilience in the face of these overwhelming attacks was nothing short of heroic. Even with limited resources and mounting casualties, they refused to give in. The raiders may have intensified their siege, but the garrison's determination only grew stronger. Alright, friends, as the siege dragged on, the defenders of Skardu faced a truly critical situation. But their spirit of heroic defense never faltered. Let's take a closer look at one of the defining moments of this phase. 10th April sortie. At dawn, Naik Chatru led a daring sortie to save the School Picquet, which had been isolated and under immense pressure. The attack was a success. The raiders were repelled, suffering heavy casualties and a severe blow to their morale. Thapa's Desperate Situation Report, 9th April. A day earlier, Major Thapa sent a grim report to Srinagar, detailing the dire state of the garrison. Hostile pressure terrific. Arki picket cut off last 4 days and fighting without water. Its fall certain today, and fort cannot survive 1 hour after that. Only immediate air support can save us now. Even in such a critical state, with dwindling supplies and isolated pickets, the garrison managed to hold on. They continued to resist, hoping for reinforcements from Srinagar, which unfortunately were delayed. Friends, we've summarized the critical situation and heroic defense of Skardu using a simple flowchart. On 10th April, Naik Chatru led a daring sortie at dawn to save the isolated School Picquet. The raiders were repelled, suffering heavy casualties, and their morale was broken. Just a day earlier, on 9th April, Major Thapa sent a desperate report to Srinagar, warning, "Ki picket cut off, no water, fall imminent. Only air support can save us." Despite the dire conditions, with limited resources and isolated positions, the garrison displayed extraordinary resilience and held on, hoping for reinforcements from Srinagar. Their courage and determination truly stand as an inspiring example of leadership under pressure. The raiders' ambush in the Thurgo Gorge reflects the Prussian-German focus on leveraging natural terrain to gain operational superiority. By using the narrow gorge, they created a deadly trap, maximizing their tactical advantage. On the other hand, Major Thapa's fortified defense at Skardu aligns perfectly with the Prussian emphasis on fort-based strategies to hold critical positions under siege. The raiders intensified attacks, bolstered by captured weapons from the ambush on the Biscuit Column, eco-Soviet operational art. The Soviets emphasized phased offensives and the resourceful use of captured enemy equipment to exploit vulnerabilities and maintain pressure on the adversary, exactly what the raiders applied at Skardu. Moving to next OP art, Naik Chatru's daring sortie to save the school picket is a textbook example of the Israeli principle of rapid tactical response. This move not only repelled the raiders, but also restored operational cohesion and boosted morale at a critical moment, something Israeli forces often prioritized during high-stakes conflicts. Alright, friends, that brings us to the end of today's video, where we explored the heroic story of Skardu's defense during the 1948 siege. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring more such amazing stories to life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care, stay curious, and keep learning. Jai Hind.